Will edition of Dirt and Sprague. Schulte and Will in on the show to get you going on this Monday. Happy to be in. It was a beautiful, mild Pacific Northwest weekend. Really just kind of enjoying the end of that as we get into another mild Monday. Will, good to see you. How did you enjoy this beautiful, mild Pacific Northwest weekend that we sat around in? This was perfect weather for me over this weekend, my friend.
Yeah, man, nothing better. It is weird getting cold at night in the summer, especially like in July. That it felt like more of a September weekend or like a May weekend. But I
May
enjoyed
showers.
it, man. Yeah, I enjoyed it though. Like you go out, hang out with some buddies, have a nice little kickback, nothing crazy.
Yeah, I actually was in with Sprague on Friday and got to talk about, the anniversary was celebrated on Thursday, and my wife and I continued that into the weekend. It was really nice. And I got to say, out in Hood River where my wife and I got married, it was just perfect. The temperature was not too hot, although a couple of forest fires out there kind of sent us home early. It's like still here in Oregon, we're dealing with all the fires, and I get out there and it gets smoky, and my wife has asthma, and I just don't like to breathe that in either. So it cut our day short probably by 2 or 3 hours, but it was still such a beautiful day. And then we ended up trying to be young again and go dancing on Saturday night. So that was awesome.
Oh, what'd you find out in Hood River? What's the dancing spot?
Oh, no. This was back in Portland. We left. No.
Oh, you go find Dixie's or something?
I used to be a huge patron of Dixie's Tavern. Actually, way back in the day, I knew their assistant manager, and I got on the VIP card list. So I don't know if y'all have been clubbing in downtown Portland in the last 10, 15 years. It really hasn't changed. There's a couple of blocks essentially with Dixie and Barrel Room and a couple of other venues along that street. I think it's 4th and kind of a couple blocks off Burnside.
No
basically.
idea.
You don't even know?
Dude, I don't know street. I don't know where I live. I have no idea.
But you know where Dixie is.
Yeah, I know how to get there.
Because
I just don't know streets. If you are going based off of streets in Portland or Vancouver and you've lived here most of your life, that always kind of raises an eyebrow to me. I can't fair. You got to be hey, go to old Voodoo Donuts, the original. Oh, I can get there. Oh, hey, it's over by Keller. I can figure it out.
Yeah, and the Voodoo Donuts, you are right. It is actually very close to that area. It's literally a block or two across Burnside from where all those clubs are. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't end up at Dixie. I used to go there a lot. If you haven't been there, go. Ladies dancing up on the bar. It's kind of like a Coyote Ugly style bar. I'm not just saying that. That's pretty much what the Yelp reviews refer to it as. And it's awesome. I mean, I've seen 60-year-olds rocking a weekend in there. So, no problem. That is one thing
man.
I enjoy about Portland is I feel like the olds go downtown all the time as well. And I'm 35. I'd consider myself a young old still, but really enjoyed the sweat and feeling like I was 22 again, drinking some Makers and Cokes and just having fun, dancing, listening to some 2000s music. So
dancing around. I'll tell you what. You know what's come into the gym playlist? It's been the 2000s playlist. I go through ebbs and flows on what I'm listening to when I'm going to the gym. Sometimes you need more rock. Sometimes you need more, sometimes I'll go in and listen to country. Sometimes I'll go in and I'll listen to hip hop. But recently, a lot of the 2008 to 2011, 2012 pop hits, that's 7th, 8th grade to beginning of high school for me. They've been entering the gym playlist.
There you go. That's pretty interesting to hear, actually, because that is probably, if you go and look at my gym playlist, I actually picked out and curated by hand back in the late 2000s, early 2010s when we didn't have algorithms doing all this for us. And I think I included a pretty decent set of songs, good bumps, and mostly rap and just hard pop songs that you would hear at a club if you're going out dancing or anything like that. But I do wonder if there is anybody out there that still puts together their own playlists, or now in the world of algorithms, they don't download music anymore themselves. They don't really own it. It's just kind of
you make playlists.
Apple Music. But I'm saying Apple Music subscriptions, Amazon Music subscriptions allow you to make playlists. I'm talking about I owned these songs and I made a playlist on, at the time, my iPod onto my iPhone, and it was 150 songs that I owned.
Oh, see, nah, I think I just missed the burning mixed CDs. Like I have a vague remembrance of like my mom doing that for
God.
like a little league t-ball slideshow or something like that. But I never made a mixtape or like a mixed CD. Like that never happened. It was never like, hey, we've been going out for 2 months. Here's like all my songs that remind me of you, baby. Like that never happened for me. For me, it would be like, hey, I like this song. Send Flo Rida, baby got back. Send. That's how I
gotcha.
would do it. Send in a text message. Baby got back. This makes me think of you.
Dude, you're making me feel old. I was in the era of love like CD playlist gifts, that kind of thing. Like you give your sicko, or maybe you're in high school and you're trying to hit on a certain person that you really like. You bring them flowers and you bring them a CD. Like, hey, I made this playlist for you, and it
Bringing
describes
flowers in high
all of
school?
my feelings for you. I'm not saying I did.
Oh, okay.
And I'm really trying to think, like, did I ever?
I
Like,
don't-
I will own up if I did, but no, I gave flowers to a girl in middle school, trying to
Did
ask
you
her who would
really?
dance. Failed
Ooh,
hard.
Yeah, that's not gonna go well.
No,
No.
but this is 7th, 8th grade Jordan, and your mom's telling her, or your mom's
Yeah,
telling him, oh,
yeah.
just be nice to her, just be
Yeah,
yourself. No,
yeah.
wrong. That's not how you handle it at the age of 13.
No,
Don't
you-
scare him and give him flowers.
You
like
got
that.
you got to blame Nickelodeon or like Disney
Yeah,
Channel on that
yeah.
because like you watch those dopey kid shows and they're like,
Yeah, like Boy Meets World.
yeah, well,
Makes everybody think that they're Corey and Topanga when that's not how most people are talking to each other.
yeah, especially like at that age. Like at that age, it's more just like, don't be a complete idiot. Like
That's
it's not
fair.
that hard.
That's
Don't
fair.
bring like you don't. When you're like in middle school, high school, you see these middle school, high school TV shows. You're watching like your Teen Nick, your Disney Channel, whatever, and you see like Drake and Josh, and Drake's always got like flowers or he's bringing something to the girl. They're always going over to the movies for dates.
Yeah.
That's not how any of that went down, at least in my high school. It was more just like, hey, I think you're cool. You also think I'm cool. Your friends are cool. My friends are cool. Well, I'll just go hang out together.
No,
I'll
like,
go do something else.
If you played the guitar, you didn't really
I
have
did not.
No, but I'm saying like you're talking about like a Drake and Josh example where like Drake is showing up with flowers. He's like, well, he's like the talented guitar player singer in that show. If you play guitar and you sing, you don't have to show up with flowers at the age of 15 or 16. It just kind of happens for you. I would think, anyways.
I'll tell you what. I was convinced that like every weekend I was going to be at the movies. Not once. Not many times. Most of
Yeah.
the time it was just like, oh, hey, my buddies are going to go get froyo. Like, let's all go get froyo together. We'll get the guys, we'll get the girls. We'll do it that way. There's a lot of lying in TV shows and movies. I'm learning as I get to become an adult, I'm learning that there was a lot of lying in sitcoms from when I was a kid. A lot of lying in those.
Oh, yeah, it's all just funny, like situational comedies that
Mhm.
people are trying to come up with a quip for. It's not actually how real life works, unfortunately. But
No,
you think
you're-
that.
Dude, the amount of times that I thought, like, just every night you and your friends are going to go hang out at the bar. That's not true. How I Met Your Mother lied to me.
No, seriously, like they spend eons of amounts of money at that bar.
Yeah,
or like friends in the coffee shop. They are always buying
They're
coffee. They
always
spend more
there.
than I spend at Dutch Brothers at that coffee shop. for
They're
goodness
always
sakes.
there. They're never working. The other part, like, Monica can't afford that apartment.
Well, nobody
They-
can in those shows.
Like, at
Nobody
one
can.
point, Jennifer Aniston is a coffee barista, and they're like, yes, she has this big apartment in Manhattan. Joey never works. Unless Joey is on as Dr. Drake Ramore, he never
Yeah.
has a job.
He's always a struggling actor. Yeah.
Yet he's able
Yeah,
to
yeah.
afford one of the nicer apartments in Manhattan. Like now, for a closet in Manhattan, it's like $2,500 a month. Like no,
And what did Chandler do in the show? Like, no, you're right. You go through every single occupation or person on that show, and you're like, no, that's your mommy or daddy gave you money to get that apartment.
Phoebe lived by herself as
Yeah.
a masseuse. Like really think about that. She
what
lived
kind
by
of masseuse
herself.
was she?
She was a masseuse in a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan.
Even back then.
She
Very
couldn't, as a
spendy.
masseuse, she couldn't afford a 2-bedroom apartment here.
No, you're right.
Wouldn't happen.
Oh yeah, the beautiful days of basically yesteryear's perfect situations of love and relationships, and yeah, you make me think of Boy Meets World, and then I'm like, all right, did I actually like go on a date to the movies or give flowers to a girl in high school? I learned from that in middle school. No, I did not. I think I went to the movie theater twice in high school ever.
No, I went to movie theater like on dates, but
Yeah,
that
like
was
two dates, at a movie
it
theater.
was never like they always made it seem like you just go like on Friday.
No.
You find someone that you're like, oh, I'm interested in this person. Hey, you want to go to the movies? Like, no, movies was much later on.
No,
Also, like malls. Like malls were not
Yeah.
a thing, but I know that they were a thing. Like probably like when you were going through high school.
I was like, yeah, they were still a thing for us. I was hitting
Malls
on
were
girls
not
in
a
malls,
thing.
yeah.
No, we didn't like. You watch TV shows. Hey, we're just gonna go hang out at the mall. We'll go to a couple different shops. Maybe we'll go to the movie theater afterwards, or we'll go get a Cinnabon. We'll go get a Orange Julius smoothie.
Hey, my second job ever was in an Annie Ann's Pretzels. All right, at
Dang.
it was
I'm
the
gonna pretend I know what that is.
the Salem Center Mall down in downtown Salem, Oregon. Not the Lancaster one, but the downtown one in Salem. I worked in an Annie Ann's Pretzels. I'm shocked you've never seen one of those. They do pretzel dogs.
Oh, I'm sure I
They do,
have. I
yeah.
just never paid attention to what it was. Cause like, dude, I don't go to the mall. Or if I'm going to the mall, I'm in and out. Like I'm going to the Men's Warehouse. I need something important. I'm going to Champs. I need a new hat. It's very, very rare that I'm going and hanging out at the mall. And in high school, you watch those, teen kid shows, whatever, as a, 5th grader, 6th grader, I'm thinking, wow, I'm just basically gonna live at the mall. Never went to the mall.
Yeah, you go to Clackamas, the movie theater is attached to the mall. So there you go.
Same with Vancouver.
Yeah, two birds, one stone, and apparently you and I didn't really go to either. Well, I went to the mall. I didn't go to the theater.
Went to
but
movie theaters.
The mall was fun, actually. I still that was still like kind of at the end of like peak mall time as I was getting older because I worked at Annie Ann's in the year 2006, 7, 8 ish. I only worked there for a year and a half in that stretch, but that was kind of when Amazon was really starting to take over, but didn't take over home delivery yet. People still wanted to go see things and hold things, and the mall was one of the best places to do that.
You know what's interesting though is I do think malls are making a comeback because I've been buying like clothes online, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what everyone does. You go to like your different cheaper websites was what we'll call them, and
Okay.
you'll get sent some clothing items, and it's like, well, this is I'm an XL, that's how big I am. I'll get sent an XL, and it's like this isn't an XL. Oh, well, in this country where you bought it from, that's what the XL size is. So then it's like I'd rather just go to the mall, go try on the clothes that I want to wear, so I understand like, okay, this is what fits, and then just wait for like the Gap or Banana Republic, whatever you're trying to buy your clothing from.
You
Just
still
wait
shop
till
at the
they
Gap?
have it. I do not.
Okay,
I've never.
good.
It's just what popped into my head right now because you got Mariners stuff on. So then baseball, A's, boom, easy. But when you go and try that stuff on, then I just wait for like, hey, it's the back to school discount or it's the this discount, and so I just wait for that and then buy there. I need to do that with jeans. I need new jeans.
I haven't bought a pair of jeans in probably 3 or 4 years.
I need jeans or like joggers or like golf pants. I need something. These jeans are on their last legs. They're getting small.
Well, apparently skinny jeans are out again. Now it's back to the baggy look.
Who
which
wore skinny jeans?
I did. My generation.
Did you
wore skinny
really?
jeans.
Were you going different colored like rainbow skinny
Oh
jeans?
God, no, just normal. No. I had just blue jeans, but
You
they
had the
were the skinny
ridiculously big shoes too.
type.
The Osirises or whatever those things are called.
Bro, I got short, stubby legs. I don't think I could have pulled that off. I think I still just rocked like a normal set of sneakers. Although I got my pair of Air Griffies that I like to wear into the studio every once in a while. So
There
I
you
guess
go.
that'd probably be like my biggest pair of shoes. So, well, speaking of big things, big weekend in sports. Well, it's summertime, but we should probably get to sportsing, huh? Because Paris Olympics are going on. It's just so much fun to have that in the background. I'm watching cycling right now, mountain biking, cycling happening in the mountains of France. So we'll get into all of the things that happened over the weekend. Let's really get to diving into a busy Monday and a busy weekend in the world of sports. Of course, we got to recap the U.S. men getting the win over Serbia on the hardwood. Also, do words actually mean anything? That's coming up later on in the 8 o'clock hour. We've also got to dive into the massive contracts signed by quarterbacks Tua Tagovailoa and Jordan Love. Those, of course, happening after Friday's show. Not surprised, but we'll get our opinions in on that. And we'll get into so much more in the world of sports, Seattle Mariners talk as well. But we'll start with our favorite things from the weekend when we come back. Schultze and Will happen to be in for Dirt and Sprague here on 1080 The Fan. start their Mondays off getting into their favorite things from the sports weekend. So, Will, if you have a couple, feel free to jump on in and throw a couple of events out there that you saw or things happening during games that you saw. But I'll start it off with a pretty easy one. Right after this show on Friday at about 10:30 a.m., the Olympic opening ceremony is getting going. Peacock, NBC, USA can watch it everywhere. That NBC's putting stuff out there streaming-wise or terrestrial, and I was extremely captivated by it, and no, I'm not talking about like the controversial point where like the Last Supper was apparently being made fun of, or some dude's cojones fell out of his shorts in that same stretch. Like there, if you go find pictures on Twitter, you can see that there was somebody that basically exposed themselves wearing very very short, basically running like shorts, and showing everybody all over the world an image of his participles. It was quite the controversy, along with basically, like, apparently the group of people making fun of the Last Supper. But that's not what I'm talking about. I basically tuned in right as I think it was Lady Gaga walking down the stairs during the Olympic opening ceremony and doing a song. She wasn't singing, she was just dancing, and then that transitioned into basically the parade of boats coming in on the Seine River through the middle of Paris. And this opening ceremony, I believe I heard Boss Man Jeff talking to us on Friday, Will, saying that that was the first Olympic ceremony ever, opening ceremony in the history of the Olympics that was held outside of a stadium. And
Good
wow.
thing it rained.
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful. It started off actually a little bit better weather-wise, but then the rain just got worse throughout the day. You saw the images of the U.S. boat basically just being soaking wet by the time they were coming in and being announced. LeBron James and Coco Gauff, the flag bearers there for the United States. But I don't know, Will, if you caught any of that, but just the music, the culture. They did a really cool program of a dude running with the torch, kind of. He was dressed up in like old French, colonial clothing, and essentially was running across different roofs all around Paris into the Louvre. There were shots of all of the famous spots around Paris, and they included what seemed to be the entire town in their opening ceremony. I loved it. I got choked up. My wife and I sat for 3 hours and watched the whole damn thing.
See, that stuff's not going to rope me in. Like, I'm a big Olympics guy.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, we're both watching whatever this cycling race is.
It's like
I'm
mountain
really
cycling
confused.
or something.
Yeah, I don't really understand what's going on, but they're racing. And there's a US guy in the top 10. So
Yes.
I'm going to care a little bit.
USA! USA!
Right. But that's not gonna rope me. Like, I don't care about the pomp and circumstance. That's not gonna get me to pay attention. What is gonna get me to pay attention are just different events that you're not used to seeing, or getting into like Team USA basketball. My favorite thing that I saw was LeBron turning back the clock. Like, him and Kevin Durant looked freaking awesome as Team USA dominated Serbia. And I think a little bit of the discourse now has turned into, well, Jason Tatum didn't play. Why didn't he play? Instead of being like, this is the last time you're probably ever going to see Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, or LeBron James playing for Team USA. Just sit back and soak it in. Like, you are going to miss these moments in 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, however long it goes on. Like, you didn't do it when MJ was going through. You didn't do it when Kobe was going through. Yeah. Understand that and just enjoy the greatness that is these players in their last Olympic Games.
Oh, I agree with you. To piggyback on what you're saying, it is so important, at least for me, to try to, as much as I hate LeBron James off the court, like every time he talks, I just find him very insufferable. You've all heard my take on the whole Bronny James thing. We're not going to spend a segment digressing on that. But even for me, guy that hates the dude off the court, it is a must watch every time he's playing. And then, yeah, you mentioned the combination of basically guys that are all 36 and older, 35 and older, with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and LeBron James just acting like they're 29 instead of 39. Yeah, 40-plus points between the two of them. We'll break that down coming up here just after 6:30. But my next favorite thing was This may have come out maybe like a month or two ago, but it was being highlighted kind of along with the Jason Kelsey sponsorship of some Olympic athletes in Paris. I had seen a post on Instagram, and it reminded me that Flava Flav, you know who Flava Flav is, right? Just, really.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, it's like you're young, but like just tell me you know who Flava Flav is, Will Ortner,
Yeah,
please.
boy.
All right. Well, Flava Flav, one of my favorite things from the weekend, seeing that he is sponsoring both the U.S. men's and women's water polo in these 2024 Olympics. And now, Will, I think you may know, Olympic athletes' stories and struggles out there, but maybe if you're not really like a normal consumer of the Olympics, you don't know that not every single athlete is super, super rich, super sponsored, highly paid, and has all this money.
They're not paying the ping pong team millions of dollars to compete.
I mean, maybe in like Japan, maybe in the Asian, like in the Asian countries like China, Japan, Taiwan. I'm pretty sure they've got a very, very highly competitive ping pong league, but here in America, I doubt we're paying our guys more than a few grand, although check me on that. No, there's definitely a part of the world where that's super, super popular. Here, not so much. And one of those sports that isn't necessarily as thought of or as popular as the others is water polo. And in May, there was a post put out by the U.S. women's team captain, Maggie Steffens, basically put a call out on Instagram asking for financial help because a lot of these people are working multiple jobs. If you don't have, the rich family or the privilege that we talk about some people having able to get to these Olympics or sponsorships, you've got to bust your ass and send yourself. Your family's got to bust their asses and try to come up with that cash. It's not cheap to go to Paris. It's not cheap to compete in these things, and obviously all the training that goes along with that. So Maggie Steffens putting out a call for financial help. Flav, whose legal name William Jonathan Drayton Jr. was moved into action, said, "As a girl dad and supporter of all women's sports, I'm a personally sponsor you, my girl, whatever you need. And I'm a sponsor of the whole team." And a week later, he signed a 5-year deal with the U.S. men's and women's teams aimed at elevating the visibility and excitement surrounding water polo in the U.S. It's a sponsorship for personal appearances from Flava Flav, as well as financial contributions and, quote, anything else they need, saying niche sports often don't get the spotlight they deserve, but they're packed with incredible talent and heart. Together, we're going to make some serious waves. And I just think that is so cool, Will, that we are seeing the lifting up of these athletes. We're talking about like living in this world of NIL money and seeing all these other sports just in the college ranks, even besides, football and basketball, kind of being thrown to the side and having to deal with a lot of the tumultuous changes that these conferences and schools are going through and scheduling and where these people are going to stay and not really getting any more money like the football team or the basketball team. And to see these sports being highlighted with, the people that can highlight them with the platform, I just love it. And they talked about it a lot on the broadcasts over the weekend. If you didn't catch the primetime broadcast on NBC, go please. Mike Tirico did a great job on Saturday and Sunday. It was just really cool to see, and I love those feel-good sports stories.
Yeah, that's what the Olympics are all about. The one that caught my eye is, have you seen the women's sevens rugby team, Ilona Meyer or Iona Meyer? I might be saying her name. I might be butchering it.
Not caught that yet. No.
Dude, she absolutely trucked some poor woman on one of the other teams. The U.S. women's rugby team is absolutely fantastic. I got into rugby a little bit in college. It was a big sport over at Central.
Okay.
And so watching the guys play, watching the girls play, it was like, oh, okay, like now I'll start paying attention. If it's on TV, I'll flip it on. And so I flipped on the rugby sevens over the weekend. The U.S. women's team is fantastic, led by Ilona Meyer. They're great athletes to watch. And you're talking about the niche sports. I could just sit and watch rugby all day. And I'm not like a big rugby guy. I don't really understand what's going on. I know you got to put the ball down for a try. You got to throw the ball backwards. Other than that, I have no idea what's going on. I'm all in on rugby. It's my new, like last Olympics, it was handball. Rugby's my new handball.
Hell yeah. We'll get back into some Olympic talk in the 7 o'clock hour, actually. Big news, some dirty details regarding the Canada soccer drone scandal. Some political reasons why the United States may have known about cheating and not reported it. So we'll get back into that, as well as an Olympic update coming up here in the 7 o'clock hour. But my last favorite thing, I would be remiss if I did not mention my Seattle Mariners getting it done in Chicago on the South Side against the White Sox, scoring 22 runs, sweeping them, and moving back into a tie for first place with the Houston Astros in the AL West. Thank you, thank you. Back-to-back-to-back jacks on Friday from, I believe it was Josh Rojas, Cal Raleigh, and Victor Robles.
Josh Rojas, Dylan Moore,
And Victor Robles. And then another day of back-to-back home runs with Raleigh and Polanco on Saturday. Just going off. So nice to see those bats exploding, and the acquisition of Randy Arozarena. Hey, I said it right. I practiced. I've now heard the Mariners announcers saying it over and over again, so I now know how to say it. Arozarena. All right, he did very well in his Mariners debut. Saturday got a hit. Yesterday got a couple of hits as well, including basically a swinging bunt for the Mariners, already paying dividends. Loving to see that. And, of course, on the eve of the trade deadline, excited to see what my Mariners are going to do because, as we'll hear from Jerry Dipoto coming up here shortly, they are still active on the trade market, Will. And so that wraps up my favorite things from the weekend. Just loved all the action in the Olympics. Loved the Mariners just getting back on the schneid and getting it done at the plate. Just answering the call, and so excited to see what they can do in the final 50 or so games of the regular season in that sprint, as Scott Service, manager of the M's, said we are getting to. All right. Let's shift gears. The United States men's basketball team opening up pool play with a convincing win over Serbia yesterday. We'll recap all of that next, including some really funny memes making their way around social media. But first, here's Will with SportsCenter. Mountain biking Olympic update coming up here in the 7 o'clock hour, but we've got to start things off in Paris with the U.S. men's basketball team getting their 2024 Olympics started off with a win yesterday over Nikola Jokic and Serbia in pool play. 110-84 the final. Oh my goodness, Will Ortner. LeBron James leading the way for starters, 21 points, 9 of 13 shooting from the floor. Drew Holiday, Devin Booker, Steph Curry, they combined for 10 threes between the three of them. They shot as a team 57% from three-point land. But the story of the game, Kevin Durant coming back from a calf injury and being vintage Kevin Durant, actually doing something he never has done in his NBA career, scoring more than 20 points in a half, or in the first half, excuse me. Never done that in the NBA, but came off the bench for Team USA against Serbia, scored 21 in the first half alone on 8 of 8 shooting. 5 of those shots were threes. Of course, Nikola Jokic put up 20 in the losing effort, but damn, Will. I mean, we can talk about how the U.S. got off to a slow start. I think Serbia led 10-2 in the first quarter. They got it within 2 or 3, closer to the half again. But the United States, man, they were on one as opposed to how they looked and were much better shooting-wise as well as compared to leading up to these Olympics.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I told people who would listen to me, like, hey, don't worry about what's going on in the friendlies. They don't matter. They don't count. It's like being upset that your team lost a preseason game. Like, shut up. Who cares?
Okay.
You know, if we get in pool play and they only beat South Sudan by 4 points, then it's like, oh, okay, you know, maybe there's something there. But when you watch this game against Serbia, what I thought was interesting is it was the old guys. It was Steph Curry. It was LeBron James. It was Kevin Durant, specifically Kevin Durant and LeBron James, that really led the way in this game. It wasn't the young guys like you kind of expected or were hoping, like Ant Edwards would take over. Now, that's not saying that Booker and Ant Edwards didn't have good games, but you didn't see them kind of lead like I think a lot of people expected. And I thought that was fun. And that's why in the last segment, I kind of went off on enjoy it while it lasts. You don't get to see many LeBron James. You don't get to see many Kevin Durant. You don't get to see a lot of these types of basketball players with this type of longevity, right? And so enjoy it while it lasts. Are they going to be like this in 2 years? No, probably not. They're probably both Kevin Durant and LeBron James are probably not in the league in 3 years. Maybe even Steph. Steph's a little bit younger, but still, like, this is your last chance to watch this type of greatness. Enjoy it, because it's not the length of a full NBA season. It's an Olympic schedule. So guess what? LeBron doesn't have to pick his moments. He can go the entire time. Kevin Durant doesn't have to pick his moments. He can go the entire time. So enjoy what it is while it lasts.
Yeah, he and LeBron becoming the first teammates in Team USA history to score 20 points each in an Olympic opener. Just crazy. I mean, the Dream Team didn't have guys that did that. We're talking the likes of Jordan Bird, Magic Johnson, the best of the best at the time. And we are still able to watch this greatness. And you're right, they can go the whole time. And them going the whole time actually did keep Jason Tatum on the bench. And I did want to quickly address the rounds of memes that are making their way on social media, essentially getting, if you see a picture of Jason Tatum in a Team USA jersey or a Team USA warm-up, essentially he is just getting roasted for sitting on the bench and being handed out awards for giving the most cups of Gatorade to teammates. I think one that I saw topping Francis Antetokounmpo for most cups of Gatorade given to teammates, most high fives, a new record set in Team USA history, and just the look of Jason Tatum sitting there for a 40-minute game. Steve Kerr, head coach, actually addressed the reason why Tatum was not playing, simply said that it's just tough to play more than 10 guys in a 40-minute game. But no, to his credit, I actually think that's true, because international quarters are 10 minutes as opposed to the NBA's 12 minutes. So you've got 8 minutes less to play with times 5. That's 40 less minutes to put those guys on the court. And at some point, we always talk about how, you know what? there's always somebody better than you, right? There's
Mhm.
always somebody better than you in your chosen fields. You're going to be great in somewhere or at something somewhere, then you're going to go to the next step up and you're going to realize, "Oh, nope, other people are just as good as I am." Well, that happens up until basically the top talent in the world, right? And we are now seeing Jason Tatum, one of the best basketball talents in the world, unfortunately, has to sit his ass and wait for LeBron and KD and Steph to retire. It just is what it is.
Well, it sounds like he's going to play more in the next game. Basically, what Kerr has alluded to, at least in his post-game presser, was there's going to be one guy each game that doesn't get to play.
Yeah.
You would have thought that it would have been like a Derek White type, not necessarily Jason Tatum, a guy coming off of, a first-team All-NBA. He just won a title. So I feel for Jason Tatum a little bit. He's also got a face where he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and so you can see that he's upset. He's not happy. He wants to be out there playing, contributing, and he feels a little bit like, slighted. That being said, after the performances that they had yesterday, were you really going to take LeBron out? Were you really going to take Kevin Durant out? The one that I do find interesting is what Kerr does with Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
When Joel Embiid was on the floor, it's -8 for Joel Embiid and Team USA. When he's off, +34 in the plus minus. So they're scoring a lot more points when Embiid's off the court, or Embiid has to play a slower style. And it feels like the way these athletes are for Team USA, they need to be outrunning. That's where you're going to be your most effective. So I wonder if we start to see Joel Embiid. I'm not saying he's not talented. Obviously, the dude just won an MVP. It's just sometimes if you don't play the same play style as everyone else on the team, you just start losing your minutes again and again and again. And so I wonder if maybe this next time it's not Jason Tatum, it's not Derek White, but it's Joel Embiid that starts losing his minutes.
Oh, that's a good question, actually. 4 points, a block, a couple of rebounds in the win. So, yeah, didn't really affect it much. And like you said, -8 as far as efficiency goes. That is not what you want to see against. And this was after the near upset against South Sudan. It's not what you want to see against a Serbia team that you know is going to be playing tight defense on you. But yeah, thankfully, LeBron just coming through as the primary offensive initiator and looking like vintage LeBron. I mean, you want to see. You know how talented the Americans are. You want to see them keeping a 10 to 15 point cushion the whole way, which is why you're talking about maybe plugging and playing, putting Tatum in instead of Joel Embiid to see exactly what you can get and if that's going to be better. This isn't a dream team situation. Like I said, I get that. The U.S. is not the leader in men's basketball talent by a long shot around the world, but the U.S. men are still 650 or -650 favorites to win the gold. So a shaky first half against Serbia along with a near upset by Sudan will have me at least wondering if I should maybe be kind of hedging a bet, placing like, $20-30 on like a France or something like that. I feel like home country may have a little bit of an advantage here. I feel like something could just happen, just a wacky instance in the gold medal game or something like that could just throw things off.
I'm just watching the games. I'm not betting on any of the Olympics. That said, watch me throw down a bet on like handball or water polo or something. I'm not. When I watch the Olympics, for me, it's more about just fun of like, hey, hopefully there's a U.S. person in it or a U.S. team in it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we win. Other than that, it's like, I'm not throwing any money.
USA. No,
That's
no,
right.
I get what you're saying. And actually, no, USA not -650. As of this morning, I just checked Bovada. They're actually now -700. So after that win, even a little bit more of a favorite to win the gold medal for men's basketball in Paris. And actually taking a look, Will, at the rest of the betting lines. Once again, this is from Bovada. Canada +850 to win the men's basketball gold. France +1400. Germany +1800. Serbia +2000. South Sudan +20,000, all the way down to Brazil, Japan, and Puerto Rico, essentially at the bottom of the barrel with +50,000 odds. I'm serious. I mean, looking at this, like +1400, France, like $10 wins me 140. I don't think that's a bad bet. I'll waste $10 to try that lottery ticket.
If any team was going to beat Team USA, it would be France.
I mean, they got the Rudy Gobert, Victor Wembanyama combination.
Do you
going
see
on,
him
right?
get yammed on, by the way?
I did.
Rudy Gobert
I
just
did.
got destroyed.
Yeah,
And that was early too. It's like, Rudy, just don't jump, buddy. Just don't put yourself in that situation. You already get made fun of enough. Just don't jump.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert is going to be fighting it for the rest of his life after essentially being the one that set COVID off in the NBA and for the rest of the world, frankly. Yeah.
He's
I mean,
just a
I don't.
goofy dude.
He is. I don't feel bad for him. He's what made almost $500 million in his NBA career after this $200 million plus contract finishes up. He's probably got a ton of sponsors still. Dude's fine. So don't act like a clown, and you deserve to be made fun of when you act like a clown. But yeah, I'm probably going to place a little hedging bet on France or something like that. But Team USA, of course, getting the huge win over Serbia, 110-84. Up next for them is going to be South Sudan on Wednesday. And Will, you mentioned it in your update. The women open up pool play against Japan at noon today. That's going to be a good one as well. Absolutely excited for that.
Yeah, measly 21.5 point favorites. We'll see if US gets the job done.
I think that Asia Wilson and Haley Van Lith are going to kick the ass of all the other girls around the world. There's no, as far as like the NBA talent matching up with the rest of the world, the WNBA talent is still kind of in that like dream team status where the women are so much better in the United States than other countries. So excited to see how much they beat Japan by. All right, sticking with the Olympics, the dirty details of the Canadian women's soccer scandal involving the use of drones to spy on other teams is now public. And yeah, those details are a doozy. The biggest albatross of it all? The U.S. knew that Canada was cheating. And the reason they did not report them was extremely political. It's 6:48 on the Fan.
How's your team?
tomorrow. We got to dive into some more Olympic talk to finish off this first hour here on a Monday morning. Last week, oh my goodness, last week, some big news about Canada's Olympic women's soccer team being caught up in a massive scandal, basically caught using drones to spy on training sessions in Paris ahead of the Olympic Games. That prompted a 6-point deduction in group play for the Canadian women, as well as a 1-year ban for head coach Bev Priestman. Women's national coach, basically sent home, had self-imposed a 1-game suspension on herself before ended up being sent home. What had ended up happening was a Canadian staffer was caught flying a drone over a New Zealand practice in Paris, and essentially the staffer ended up being charged by French police and had to be sent home from the games, as well as another assistant. So she did not attend. Bev Priestman did not attend the team's 2-1 win over New Zealand. The assistant coach, Andy Spence, I believe is his name, taking over and leading the Canadian women through the rest of the Olympics. And pretty funny stuff, Will, because the details are now being leaked out about how far this Canada usage of drones to spy on other teams really stretches. And it's a lot further and been going on a lot longer than you think. Shocking. People are cheating in the world of sports. God, I mean, trust me, it still really, really pisses me off, but let's get into the details, and I can tell you why it pisses me off. Maybe we'll get on a Schulte soapbox or something. Essentially, so this scandal reaching much further and longer than just these 2024 Olympic Games. Apparently, this is according to an article from ESPN's Sam Borden, did a great write-up on this over the weekend. Apparently, he's saying that this spying scandal did not come as a surprise to the U.S. Soccer Federation. They had apparently been aware of Canada's alleged spying tactics for quite some time, even when Canada attempted to spy on American teams. The Federation simply never reported it to a governing body, in part due to larger projects the two countries have been working on together. Including the joint bid with Mexico for the 2026 World Cup. So essentially what we're finding out here from ESPN's Sam Borden is the U.S. knew that this cheating had been going on, not just in the women's soccer program for Canada, but the men's as well, as I'm about to get into. And the U.S. didn't want to say anything to FIFA, to CONCACAF, to the Olympics about Canada cheating, even though they knew, because of their hopes of landing the bid for the 2026 World Cup. And I'm sure they're probably getting together to plan for bidding on other massive worldwide events together in the future. I mean, Will, I hate to just totally overreact here, but does that not absolutely destroy the fabric, at least in this world of soccer, of fair competition? I mean, who cares if you win the bid for a World Cup if teams are cheating to win it? To me, it's ass logic, but it's just the almighty dollar here, so I digress.
Well, I mean, look, since the beginning of time, probably back all the way into ancient Greek days, people were cheating. Like, cheating in sports isn't a new thing.
Well, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
People have been doing it forever. The problem here is it's very similar to the Patriots Spygate scandal, right? Like, they have people go in, they're videotaping, and then they use the videotape to come up with a game plan to beat other people. The problem is now, like, for the Canadians, this kind of comes in to tarnish your last Olympics where you won gold, right? Like, they won gold in Tokyo. They were able to get the job done.
Yes.
And now that's forever going to be tainted because U.S. comes out and admits, hey, we've known about it for a while, but we had other things that we had to do. Also, not that abnormal political stuff. You don't want to get into the weeds of that because things are going to get let go because they need help in other areas.
Yeah.
What really, the unfortunate part is I feel bad for the players. This is a coaching staff. It's clear that this coach and her entire staff, this was something, while she might not have said go do it, she knew what was happening, right? You use that video footage. You don't have a assistant coach come back with video footage and be like, hey, look at what I have. You can now look at what New Zealand was practicing and be like, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to look the other way and we're going to do our own thing. Like, you knew what was going on. You were using it to your own advantage. And now you have to pay the price. And you should have to pay the price. It should be heavy. It should be you not being able to coach internationally. It might even be something where you're not able to coach in some of the top leagues anymore because they don't trust you. And you have not earned that trust. You've taken it away. That all being said, I do feel for the players. Because if the coaches are saying, hey, we think New Zealand's going to do X, Y, Z, and the players are like, oh, okay, well, then this is going to change our game plan.
Yeah.
You are forever going to be thought of as a cheater when you didn't necessarily cheat.
And Will, I know we're up against it, but I gotta finish my take on this. Like this was not a one-off, by the way. Canada, this is from the ESPN report. They had been using drones to spy on opponents for years, according to Borden. In 2021, security repeatedly found a man watching a closed men's team practice at IMG Academy in Florida. That man eventually confronted, then admitted that he worked for Canada Soccer. No report was made to a governing body. The women's team allegedly used drones to spy on opponents, as you just said, talking about their gold medal in Tokyo at the 2021 games in Tokyo. They were alleged to have spied during those games when they won the medal, allegedly flying a drone over Honduras' training session last year as well, and also attempted to do so during training sessions ahead of Copa America earlier this summer. Will, this is an ongoing thing, and you talk about the sanctions that Canada is facing. What about the United States for not reporting anything? The questionable ethical behavior that the USA is taking part in by failing to report Canada for using these drones, it's a complete joke, Will. All right, I'll soapbox it. It's a failure of the human race. It's then a failure of every single federation or committee that oversees these competitions they participate in. How can you be trusted as an official of Team USA or at Canada? The fact that there are no laws against this kind of like ill reporting or non-reporting, or this kind of essentially just lacking moral behavior, it's disgusting to me, dude. It's illegal to steal.
Isn't it soccer, though?
It's
that's what they do.
It's about the fairness of competition, right? It's the kind of, it's not ethical, but not illegal gray area type of behavior, Will, that just grinds my gears. I'm not saying it's ever going to change. I want it to change. I don't think it will, but I'd like to take the opportunity to point out that people are failing each other. You're failing your athletes, you're failing your fans, and you're failing each other as the U.S. and Canada by doing this. That's all I got.
It's also soccer. Like the FIFA is the dirtiest organization in all of pro sports.
You are not wrong about that.
And it's followed really closely by the IOC, which is the Olympic Committee, right? Like, don't get me wrong.
No, C Cutter 2020. No, you're so right. You're not wrong, Will.
Don't get me wrong. Like, if it was a perfect world, no one would cheat, and the minute that the U.S. thought that they were cheating, they would report them. But that's not the world that we live in. Sometimes you have to look the other way if you're helping out a partner or something like that. I'm not saying it's right what the U.S. did. I'm just saying I can understand what they were doing, if that makes sense. And Canada cheating videotaping, this won't be the last videotaping scandal that you see this whole year. Like, I remember in college, I mean, right now, think about it this way. Up in Seattle, you cannot go to training camp practice and videotape anything that the Seahawks are doing.
No.
That is because that coaching staff has said that they've gone on Twitter or Instagram, seen what other fans have videotaped, and then used it to set up a scheme around playing a team that they were playing the next week. That's not illegal what they were doing.
No.
Obviously, what Canada has done is taken that kind of thing and crossed the line, gone way past it, and people should be punished. And it looks like former men's coaches might be punished as well because they were in bed and they were the ones who started this, where the rumors have been circulating for years.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm not really shocked. Like, what does soccer do best? They cheat and then they try and score a couple goals. Like, that's what soccer is.
Yeah, the laughable faking of an injury, trying to, get a yellow card pulled on the other team. I get it. I hate it all. And to wrap it up, I really hope the U.S. Soccer Federation also faces some sort of sanction going forward. It's probably not going to happen in these Olympics, although this report did just come out over the weekend, so we'll see if any investigations are happening outside of Canada's independent investigation they said they were doing. All right, let's shift gears from the Olympics to the world of baseball. Will my Seattle Mariners and your Seattle Mariners, will the Mariners make another trade before the deadline tomorrow? Some insight from Jerry DePoto himself next on a Schulte and Will edition of Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Hey,
edition of your Coffee Bros here on Sports Radio 1080 The Fan, 99.5 HD2, the Odyssey app, YouTube, Twitch. We're having a great time today. There was just so much happening over the weekend, and we continue. We talked a lot of Olympics. We continue to get into actually some more Olympics later in the hour. We got some NFL football. Some quarterbacks got paid over the weekend, so we got to dive into that, and a Dallas Cowboys wide receiver not wanting to report to camp. That's the least surprising news of the weekend, but we got to dive into that as well. And of course, my Seattle Mariners, your Seattle Mariners as well, are, well, I would say turning things around, definitely making some moves in the right direction after their sweep of the Chicago White Sox over the weekend. Good to be in with you, Will. We'll dive into that here in just a second. I went a little late in the last segment. I apologize, going on a rant about Canadian women's soccer and the drone scandal that's been plaguing their team. Of course, they were penalized for these Olympics, but then after that, further information coming out that the United States knew about Canada cheating and did nothing about it because they wanted the FIFA bid or the World Cup bid to come for 2026 to Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So, sorry, we're late. I digress. Maybe we can turn it around to some happier things now with the Seattle Mariners. But, Will, I've got to get something off my chest before we get into that. I think somebody slept in my wife and I's car over the weekend. I think somebody kind of opened our passenger door like Saturday night into Sunday.
Why do you think that?
Because when I came into the car, now I did get driven home. My wife and I were a little too tipsy, so we had our buddy, my bestie Nick, who actually had nothing to drink on Saturday night, just take our car home. I was in the passenger seat, my wife in the back. Got home. He gets back into his car where he parked and at our house, and then goes back home to Salem where he's from. But in that, I never remembered. I know I had a few drinks. I was tipsy Saturday night, but I never remembered putting my passenger seat down, like at all. And when I came back out to the car, like laying it down, like you can, like
Yes.
lean it back a little
Yeah.
bit, lean it forward.
Yeah.
There's that automatic little I don't know what you would call it, like a button or
I know
something
what
like
you're
that.
talking
On
about,
the
yeah.
yeah. Anyways, come out the next morning to start the car, and the passenger seat is all the way down, like a bed, like flat. And
But nothing was taken?
the entirety of the car inside was not touched, other than the seat, the passenger seat being all the way down.
I don't know. That's a weird move. Like, break into someone's car,
Yeah,
not damage anything.
exactly. Yeah, and this,
But
thankfully,
then just sleep.
this is a rental, by the way, so my wife and I aren't really scared, for our stuff. There really was nothing valuable in there to begin with. If we wanted to take a $12 beach chair, more power to him. But it was just, I guess, more the event happening, and I kind of wonder, I live in Wilsonville. If anybody in and around Portland has ever had that happen, text us on the Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6VAN. Your dollar goes further. At Vancouver Ford, they treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Let me know if that's ever happened to you. I feel like I've had my car rifled through before. I lived all around different spots in downtown Portland, like Southeast 20th and Stark. I lived, deeper towards Clackamas as well. I've never come out in the morning to my vehicle and just had the passenger seat laying down. And frankly, it
Really
freaked me
weird.
out. I told my wife, freaked her out. And now we want to get the car back to the rental agency because we're fairly sure that somebody else was in that car on Saturday night.
Weird. Did you notice when you came in the white van?
The
parking lot?
The white van here in the parking lot. I believe I've seen a white van here in the parking lot.
Was
I
it
don't know
not
if I
there?
noticed it today.
It was there when I got in. Their passenger side window was smashed out.
Oh no.
Did not expect to see that as I came in to the office today.
I mean, I'm not surprised. It happens all around Portland. And
Yeah, but
Seattle.
we're in a pretty good spot though. It doesn't really happen here.
No, but it happens even in good spots just because people know what to look for. If you see it, most of the time, if it's a smash and grab out of a car, kind of seems like, at this point, at least from my experience, it just looks like a crime of opportunity after the fact. And you find out,
guess.
the people that did it just kind of were walking by, saw something valuable in a window, and took the chance and tried to grab it. I mean, that happened to my wife and I in Seattle. The back of our car was busted out. We parked, God, paid like $40 outside T-Mobile Park to go to a Mariners game, and we came back out, and the whole back window was gone. My iPad was gone. Her work laptop was gone. It was like somebody watched us put it in the car and then waited for us to leave. So crime of opportunity, kind of what
I guess so, maybe.
I
And
see.
I mean, I know I just told a story the other day about how I literally watched people try and steal a car in front of me, which blew my mind. But I just maybe I'm blessed. I just really haven't had a lot of those issues, and it's not like I'm living in the greatest part of town in Vancouver, but I really don't worry about those things. It really hasn't happened that often to me.
Yeah, you don't have that 1080 the fan Ryan Buckley privilege or whatever. They say that he's got like extra privilege and like sexy vacation spots and money from his parents. So I don't know.
No, I
I don't have
live
that.
I live I do not live in the nicest part of town.
But you still don't get your car busted in. So
No, I think most people see me and go the other way.
well, that is something that I'm trying to deal with happening to my wife and I over the weekend. Yeah, I swear somebody slept in our car. I don't know if I mean we saw like 4 or 5 cops hanging out by the side of the road in one spot in Wilsonville when we came home. So my wife's theory was like somebody was trying to hide.
Hmm.
Like somebody was running and
Maybe.
they didn't want to touch anything, but they also didn't want to be seen, and they just kind of I stupidly probably didn't lock the door, and they just kind of took advantage of that. So
Yeah, maybe. Or yeah, who knows? Maybe you guys forgot and you just left it down.
I I was not that drunk, bro.
I maybe it happened. I don't know what to tell you, man.
I had like 4 single shot drinks, not over a period of like an evening. It wasn't, stupid. I shouldn't have driven, and I did not, but it was nothing that I feel like it causes me to forget the evening completely. So.
Yeah, who knows?
Oh, well, be careful out there, y'all. Be careful, even if you live in the suburbs, because that was the morning that I woke up to yesterday. But a much better morning today. Let's move on. Let's get back on the clock. A little bit of a short segue because of my rant about Canadian women's soccer and the U.S. failing to report their use of drones. Because they're in cahoots together. But let's move on. I teased it. We got to talk about the Seattle Mariners. We are on the eve of the trade deadline. They already have made 2 moves, actually 3 technically, acquiring reliever Jimmy Garcia from the Blue Jays, as well as outfielder Randy Rosarena from the Tampa Bay Rays. Another Tampa Bay Ray was maybe on his way to Seattle. That's out, but they are still apparently very active in the trade market, as we'll hear from Jerry DePoto himself next on a Schulte and Will edition of Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan. Mariners, though, trying to maybe make another deal or not before the trade deadline. They already made a couple and actually got right over the weekend with that sweep of the Chicago White Sox. 22 total runs in 3 games. They won 6-3 twice, as well as a shutout win in one of their games, 10-0. Back-to-back-to-back jacks on Friday, back-to-back jacks Saturday. Everybody seems like they're hitting home runs right now. Even Mitch Haniger getting in on the action, although you still kind of wonder about the designated hitter position. Mitch Garver, also first base after they let Ty France go. With the call-up of Tyler Locklear, he's basically been just anemic at the plate. I don't think he's even gotten a hit since he got called up. But the Mariners, after that series over the weekend, tied for first place again with the Houston Astros in the AL West. Both teams do sit about a game and a half out of the wild card fight right now. The Red Sox are in that fight, and actually the Mariners are in Boston at Fenway Park starting a series today against them. I think it is a 3-game series.
Yeah, 4:10.
Yeah, 4:10 first pitch today. Yeah, because and that reminds me of living in Boston, because when I lived there, I was a still diehard Mariners fan watching the West Coast 7:10 first pitches at 10:10. That was tough, dude.
It's rough.
That was very hard to stay up until 1, 2 p.m. watching, and it was not good Mariners baseball.
When it comes to time slots, the East Coast is the worst. It's not even close.
Especially for those West Coast schools or teams, but then even like the Super Bowl. When did the Super Bowl start this year for the East Coast? Like 5 or 6:30?
Yeah, probably 5 or 6:30.
It was a late start, so it's definitely when you hear about like people asking for the day off, like on a game after that. Yeah, the East Coast especially needs that. But a team on the East Coast that the Seattle Mariners just did a trade with, the Tampa Bay Rays, well, they've been dealing their ass off. And actually, one, Randy Arozarena, now a Seattle Mariner, but a couple of other guys on the move. Zach Eflin, one of their good starting pitchers, being sent to Baltimore. A reliever of theirs going to the Padres. Somebody on the Mariners' wish list, Isaac Paredes, third baseman for the Rays, being handed to the Chicago Cubs in a swap for Christopher Morel. So the Rays making moves with the Seattle Mariners and other teams, but the Mariners also want to make some more moves. They still, after acquiring Jimmy Garcia and Randy Arozarena, have a couple of needs. We were just talking about first base. Maybe they could use another starter reliever type. Brian Wu leaving again this weekend after 4 innings with a hamstring injury. Not sure he's going to have to go on the IL, but there are questions there, Will. The Mariners sitting at 5 games above 500, 56-51. First, actually, before we get into what we think, let's hear from Jerry Dipoto. He was on MLB Network this weekend, SiriusXM's MLB Network Sunday morning show, basically talking about what the Mariners' plans are for the trade deadline and what they want to do even after acquiring a big bat in Randy Arozarena.
We're pretty content right now. Been able to do for our pitching staff. Wouldn't hang up if somebody wanted to call and send us an upgrade, but you know, with the offense, we do feel like there's still opportunity, and you know, whether that's adding a bat for the corner infield positions, another outfielder, we feel like, you know, the offense again is an area that has been, you know, in need of help, and we feel like if there's a guy out there that can really boost us, ideally it's one of the 4 corners, and you know, it's a pretty thin market right now, and we feel like the fact that it moved quickly this week is pretty indicative of how few players are actually available, and who knows how that'll shake out in the next 2 days. Maybe the market will open up.
All right, so President Jerry Dipoto there, pretty good wordsmith, Will, kind of dancing around, you know, what the question was. But he did, I'd say, give a little bit of a direct answer, saying that they are still open, the Mariners are, to upgrading at either the corner outfield positions, or really their big need is the corner infield, first base specifically. And a guy like Yandy Diaz, who just got reinstated from the bereavement list for the Rays, is on that list. Ryan McMahon for the Rockies could be a fit. Taylor Ward from the Angels, an outfielder there. Obviously, the big get would be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. from the Blue Jays. Not sure they're taking calls, and I feel like that would have been included with a Jimmy Garcia to Seattle deal. So it sounds like the Mariners are still very active, even according to Jerry Dipoto himself. Do you think they're going to make a move? I hope so. I think they're going to make a move. It's just interesting to see exactly who they're going to end up with by tomorrow at noon.
Honestly, at this point, like, if they get another person, you know, a first baseman, if you can get Vladdy, that's obviously huge. But if Dipoto doesn't get anyone else, I still feel like it's a victory at the trade deadline. Like, you went out and you got a big name bat in the outfield, a guy that you have for a couple years under contract, that hopefully, if things go well, you can get him re-signed. If you can have Randy Arozarena and you can have Julio in the outfield, and then Robles has been absolutely fantastic.
He's been hitting almost 400.
Right, and I understand that could just be a flash in the pan, like he's just getting really hot right now in July. That's a great outfield. And hopefully, this last series in Chicago is a sign that the bats are returning. It felt like when I was up there now almost 2 weeks ago on a couple Fridays ago watching them right after the All-Star break, everyone felt a little tight. It almost felt like momentum was going against the Mariners.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying too hard. Hopefully when you get the new bat in the lineup, everything frees up. You get looser, all of a sudden messages start getting across, because once you start trying to hit, right? Once everything is swing as hard as I can, you're so tight, that's when you have your problems. You need to be playing free. You need to be playing loose. And hopefully this trade and these couple moves that they've made at the deadline has been able to allow the bats to do that, and they can turn it around. You're not going to be a great hitting ball club, but can you at least get into an average hitting ball club? If they could do that, that would be fantastic.
Of course, and you need to be a great hitting ball club at the end of the year. I mean, that's a given. You're facing elite relievers essentially in the 7th, 8th, and 9th that are throwing 100 miles an hour basically a piece. Nobody's throwing under 95 anymore, and it's not like the Mariners still are without blemishes in their weekend series. I actually see quite a bit of strikeouts still happening amongst the runs that they scored.
It's their favorite thing to do.
They struck out at least 20-some times over those 3 games in Chicago against terrible pitchers. So
they love to do it.
And I, as a Mariners fan, want to say, like, hey, I'm happy that I see my team performing a little bit better here, but all these problems are not solved. And you see kind of the black hole that I've just mentioned. Tyler Locklear's been at the plate. Mitch Garver is literally your worst statistical hitter in Major League Baseball.
Bad.
You cannot keep trumping him out there at the designated hitter position and expect, whenever he does get a hit like once every 2 weeks or goes 2 for 2 once every 2 weeks, and affects the win that day, that's going to be enough for you. Those at bats, Will, are getting so much more valuable. And that is why, even after the Arozarena acquisition, I'm really working hard to say that correctly, even after Jimmy Garcia, which were both much needed, I still feel like the Mariners are sitting on the fence if they don't go out and give whoever they need to give up for another bat. And I'm talking the best, biggest bat that they can get. You should be calling the Blue Jays saying, I will give you Ford, I will give you Brian Wu, and I will give you Colt Emerson or one of my other very, very high-level prospects. Although Harry Ford just got placed, their number 2 prospect, just got placed on the IL with a concussion. So that might hamper the Mariners' efforts to trade him by tomorrow. Teams can still trade for injured players, but it's kind of up in the air at this point. Still 24 hours remaining until the trade deadline. But in my opinion, Will, they are sitting on the fence if they don't go out and get another bat. They are still looking at major holes in their lineup, even when JP and Julio come back.
Hey, they got me back in. I'll tell you what. After the Friday game against the Astros, I was kind of out on them. After that series, I was out on the Mariners. You have this collapse. We've seen this song and dance before. I've been alive 26 years. In that time, I only remember one playoff series because I don't remember 2001. I'm too young.
Yeah, I barely remember it.
So. I remember a lot of blown playoff chances, a lot of opportunities where you're looking at the end of August and, hey, the Mariners are right there. They just need to keep winning at the rate they are, maybe pick it up a little bit, and they find a way to have historic collapses. I'm ready to be hurt again. I am back in on the Mariners. You made the trade for Arozarena. I now love you again. I'm ready to be hurt by all that the Seattle Mariners have to offer.
I love it. I have always been ready to be hurt by them. I am out on the floor. I am still buying their gear, and I am ready to bleed teal once again this season for my Seattle Mariners. So hopefully, I think they need to make a move. Hopefully they will. Hopefully it's like a Ryan McMahon from Colorado. He's been just nails for them this year on a team that's just not doing anything. So hopefully they do that. The Mariners have basically just under a day to do so, and we'll see exactly what happens while they are in Boston, starting a series, a 3-game set with the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park, like Will Ortner said this afternoon. 4:10 p.m. first pitch. You got Logan Gilbert, who has been, I think, like pitching to an under 1.50 ERA in his last 3 starts compared to Red Sox starter Nick Pivetta. I think last 3 starts for him, he's been an over 6 ERA. So hopefully Seattle can keep it rolling as they move to Boston. All right, let's move on to the daily ticker. We'll dive into the number 23.1 and why it now has a very special meaning to college football. That's coming up next, but first, Will with SportsCenter. Brewing.com for more details on locations, events, and award-winning beers independently brewed since 1996. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. All right, let's dive into a very, very important number here in the ticker now that is a part of college football, Will Ortner. Big news, actually, kind of a Friday night, late night data dump, one of those, but big news. Across the wire over the weekend. Ooh, looks like I just saw an MLB trade. No, that's the Royals acquiring Michael Lorenzen. All right. If I see any Seattle trades or movement, we're less than about a day from the MLB trade deadline, I will let you know as soon as I see it. But the NCAA essentially coming to terms on a lawsuit, an antitrust lawsuit in the very changing world of college football and NIL and the ability for players to get paid by playing at a university now directly from the university as opposed to just being an NIL collective paying them. And essentially, this antitrust settlement with the NCAA and its biggest conferences now that they have done with current and former players not only lays out the method of payment that we're going to see implemented here in about the next year or so, as I'll get into, but also talking about the proposed 2.78 pool, $1 billion pool of damages that's going to be going to former players. So, Will, we heard about this, a month and a half, 2 months ago, about the antitrust lawsuit with the NCAA happening and the settlement being done. We didn't really know what the terms were. Now we have some answers. Now, of course, the proposed settlement has two functions here. I'm going to try. ESPN did a really great write-up on this. This was, like I said, a 100-page data dump. So I'm trying to orate this correctly. I'm trying to get everything across that needs to be put across here. I apologize if I miss anything, but ESPN did a really great write-up on this, and I'll tell you why the number 23.1 million is important here in a second. But essentially, this proposed settlement has two main functions. As I just said, the former athletes eligible to receive $2.78 billion of damages, and also the framework being laid out for paying players directly from the schools along with an NIL collective. And now we have that framework that was in this Friday data dump. So players basically looking ahead when this will be implemented, Will Ortner, players are going to get started being paid by their schools directly if all works by this time next year. The tentative schedule looking basically like this. Early October, once again, this is from these 100 pages of these lawsuit terms getting put out in this data dump from Friday night. Athletes in early October are going to begin to receive details about the settlement impacting them. So I'm assuming, getting a letter in the mail, getting some kind of correspondence from either the plaintiff's attorneys or the NCAA and the conferences themselves.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's where like a compliance director holds like a team meeting or something, because if they're just sending information to the athletes, half these athletes are going to miss it.
You think so? They're not going to read it, or they're just not even going to know that they were notified of said information.
No, dude. Like when you're
20,
18,
you're not checking
19,
your mail.
20, 21. No, dude. I never checked my mail.
I hear
come on. I have no. There's even times now where it's like, did I get paid? Maybe. I don't know. Like, there's money in my account. I probably got paid. Like, come on, man. I'm 26 and I don't check my mail. I check my mail 3 times a week. It's like every 2 or 3 days. You're telling me that 18, 19, 20-year-olds, they're going to be checking their mail all the time? No. They're going to get set up. There's going to be someone at the school that is there to help take care of them. We had a compliance officer. If you watched Last Chance U, I forget the lady's name in the first 2 seasons.
I do remember what you're talking about.
Well, she was also academics. She would be the type of person, or another person would have a similar job as she did, to help lay this information out to the athletes. We used to have it all the time when we'd report to camp. I know the Ducks are doing their media day right now. I guarantee you that they'll have somebody in October that will help take care of those players.
Yeah, that sounds pretty true, I think, Will. If I'm thinking like you're thinking that, 18, 20, 21-year-olds just aren't checking their mail. Yeah, I think the team's responsibility for sure kind of comes into play there, letting players know exactly what's happening with this. So that's happening in early October. Mid-January is the deadlines for athletes to submit any objections to this plan or to opt out of this plan. Mid-March of 2025, the judge will make a final ruling on the settlement, and then summer of next year, schools will then begin to sign these deals, and that's what we're hearing about this time next year. Schools will be able and begin to sign deals with athletes. So at the start of this, Will, we're talking about next summer when we start to see schools paying athletes directly. They are, under these terms, going to be able to pay a total of $23.1 million to all of their student athletes in additional money. That's in addition to tuition, stipends, meal plans, housing benefits that the school already provides. So they're not losing scholarships. They're not losing the ability to get to go to school when they're playing in these respective sports for their universities. And essentially that amount, $23.1 million, is just a starting point. It's going to increase with inflation every year by 4%. An economist hired by the plaintiffs projecting that the cap would raise around $1 million every year. That's what the 4% is going to represent. And by 2035 should be just about $33 million. And I would say that's a pretty important number, the 23.1. They settled on that because it was a formula that basically gives athletes 22% of the money that the power conferences and the schools make up from their media rights deal. It was essentially the average amount that those schools make from media rights, ticket sales, sponsors. And what that formula does is end up treating all athletes the same, despite most of the revenue being brought in by football and basketball programs at all these universities. And then each school is going to be able to decide how to divvy that money up. So I would say big news that we're seeing now an amount that we know schools are going to have to work with. Obviously, not every school is going to be able to spend $23.1 million. But I'd say it's interesting that the number seems pretty similar to what bigger schools were spending on NIL collectives in the last year or two. That number was about 15 to 20 million. And now we're seeing this number being put at 23.1 million, which I would say, 22% of the revenue. That's usually about half of what pro athletes get. I think pro athletes right now are getting about 50% of the revenue when it comes to media rights deals, and NCAA athletes are getting 22%. That 23.1, a very specific number, Will. Do you think that's going to be enough? Do you think there's going to be issues with that? I think that that's more than enough money to give your quarterback $3 million, to pay everybody else that needs it $1 million, a few $100,000, and then even still kind of divvy that money down to like the likes of the water polo team or the gymnastics team or something like that.
Yeah, and then those questions still aren't answered. Like I'm reading through the article here, and like one of the lead plaintiffs is Sedona Price, right? Or Prince, excuse me. She's a TCU basketball player. She's going through it, and she's talking about, well, you still have to factor in Title IX on certain things, especially with the public universities. So if you have 23.1 million, right?
Yep.
Do you have to make sure that if you spend, let's say you don't spend the full 23.1 million, you spend 15. Well, do you have to spend 15 on women's teams as well?
Yeah.
Like, how does that all work? And I understand that right now in a lot of sports, football and men's basketball primarily make the money, primarily football.
And how do you divvy that up if there's no women's football team, there's a men's and women's basketball team? That starts to kind of, I would think, muddy the waters.
Well, that's where you're right. Like, that's where it gets interesting. Like, when I played at Central, we have 3 fall sports. You have football, which I think we were 25 or 26 scholarship athletes. And then you had women's soccer and you had women's volleyball. And between those two sports, and I don't know if they split it up 13 and 13 or, one was 14 and 12 or however they did it, they evened out the scholarships in 2 different sports. So my question would be, for the money, if Title IX comes in and applies here, how do you work the money around so that they're able to compete the same, but also get paid the same? Because if they don't get paid the same, I would assume you just got to go get a lawyer, and then you just go right back at the NCAA or the school that you're at for not being Title IX compliant. Like, that's a whole class that I had to take in college about how to find different ways to be Title IX compliant.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of questions. Yes, we now have more answers and we have more of an idea of what's going to happen. But this is still a long way from done because you have to find a way to be Title IX compliant or else the schools are going to be in a real bind.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You wonder if what these stipulations are laying out is it sounds like that this collective, or excuse me, this money, $23.1 million directly from schools can be inclusive of like an NIL collective payment, but there's also stuff that could be put outside of that. And I kind of wonder if it will be like the star players, like the Bo Nixes of the world, like the Dylan Gabriels of the world, like all the quarterbacks, the Marvin Harrison Juniors that are getting, those big extra amounts from an NIL collective. And then you've got basically essentially like a salary or a payment directly from a school going to the players on the roster that aren't, playing normally, that aren't going to get any kind of NIL deals. I kind of wonder how that's going to be divvied up, if maybe Title IX will come into play there and you see some of this money kind of being supplemented by NIL deals for women's basketball to help even things up. So yeah, that's definitely a big thing as far as college football and college sports in general, but football and basketball being really affected, especially one thing that I heard Dabo Sweeney really scared about, Clemson head football coach, saying that he thinks walk-ons are going to be going away in this world. They're not quite going away, Will, but schools essentially under current rules were allowed 120 players total on a football team with 85 scholarships. Under this new set of rules, you will now have no limit on the scholarships that you're allowed to give out. You will only have a roster limit. So these lawsuit terms essentially laying out a roster limit for football teams of 105 now. No scholarship limits. You could scholarship all 105 players if you want, and 15 on each men's and women's basketball. So you kind of wonder, like, walk-offs aren't going to be gone, but you wonder if they're going to be around or as prominent as they were before this point. So that's one thing that got snuck in here at the end of this, and also just confirming who gets a piece of that $2.78 billion in damages. Will, I don't know if you knew this, but the cutoff date is 2016. People have been lamenting at that, saying, so people that played before 2016, all those great studs don't get any money. Well, it's that they can't really sue because of antitrust laws only letting you go back so much. 2016 is as far as you can sue backwards.
Yeah, and despite playing in 2016, I am not a part of this lawsuit.
Central Washington was not in the...
No, D1's only. In a shocking development, no one was clamoring for me to be helping out with their Boost Mobile.
Why not? I'd love to see Will Ortner, little shaggy-haired Will Ortner, out there hawking some Boost.
I would have braided my hair for the occasion.
You would have been the perfect demographic. 20-year-olds that need cheap cell phone service. Exactly. I would have signed you up in a heartbeat. All right, and yeah, sounds like a lot of athletes are going to be getting signed up to more deals directly with their schools as well as NIL collective deals. So nice to see those details coming out from the NCAA antitrust lawsuit. But like Will said, there is so much more to be decided. Coming up next, an update on the Olympic medal count after this first weekend of Paris, as well as the least surprising news of the weekend. But we got to dive into it. That's coming up next on a Schultze and Will edition of Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan. Time brought to you on the Fan by Crunch Fitness. Memberships as low as $9.99 per month. Find them at their multiple locations at crunch.com. Let's start it off in Paris. Get the Olympic update for you. The 2024 Summer Olympics happening in Paris, France, the first weekend of action. And let's get you an update on the medal count so far out of Paris. Of course, the United States, are you surprised, leading thus far, 12 total medals, although not leading in total golds. That would be Japan, Australia, and South Korea, all with 4. But the overall leader, missing China with 5. Looks like they added an extra one overnighter in this morning's competition. So China, your overall gold leader, with 5, Japan at 4, as well as Australia and South Korea. The United States has 3 gold medals, along with France, the host country. The United States bringing in a lot of silvers, though, as well as 3 bronze, 6 silvers, 3 bronze for a total of 12, and they lead the total medal count 12-10 for France and 9 in China. Some fun action this weekend. I know, Will, you were talking about all the obscure sports that you were watching. We were just watching some cycling, mountain biking. I am stoked for the speed walk competition. I know like handball and field hockey and soccer. I don't know if rugby got going early as well, but
Rugby's
all those
on right now. I'm watching the U.S. team. They're losing to France.
There we go.
Really bummed out. It's the women's team. I'm really bummed out about it. We just lost in water polo.
Mm-hmm.
I watched Flavor Flav, and I've never seen someone with such a big clock be so disappointed.
Oh man, he's watching his team and he's upset.
We lost in pool play. Stupid Spain.
Well, that's good thing about pool play is there are 3 or 4 games. So if you lose one, you're not totally out yet.
No.
But yeah. So water polo going on right now, rugby going on right now. But the U.S., the overall leader in medals, of course, not the leader in golds. But watched a couple. I think it was 2 United States women. It was, I think, the 400 meters last night in swimming, get the gold and silver together in the same race.
In the butterfly, that was
Thank you, the butterfly. That's
Husk
what it was.
And Walsh?
That sounds right.
Gretchen Walsh, I believe. That was crazy because Walsh was supposed to win, and last Olympics, Husk, she had missed out on a bronze medal in that event by 1/100th of a second.
Ooh.
So to come back 3 years later, win gold, that's fantastic.
Also, there was like a full-time engineer that won a silver medal in the swimming pool. Nick Fink. He is a swimming medalist and engineer. He won the silver medal in the men's 100-meter breaststroke last night. He has a 9-to-5 job as an assistant project manager for an engineering firm. He's 31 years old, and he just won a silver medal for the Olympics, Will. How about that?
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Right now I'm watching some kind of gymnastics commercial. You know what's interesting that I found out about myself? I do not watch like any of the men's gymnastics.
No, you watch the ladies.
Well, I know, but
So much more entertaining.
I know, but we're good at men's gymnastics too, I think. Aren't we decent? I don't know. I've watched a routine where the guy's on the rings and he's swinging around, and it looked good to me, but I couldn't tell you if like we were one of the top ones.
I don't know. The female gymnastics are just so captivating. Plus the local connections. You got Jordan Childs from Vancouver, Washington, Jade Carey, who goes to Oregon State. And then, of course, not connected to here locally, but Simone Biles is just amazing. And even fighting through injury last night.
You see what happened to Jordan Childs?
Still did so amazing. I'm not sure what you're talking
got third. So in the all-around,
Oh,
they
yes, last
only
night, yeah.
take the top 2. So even though she was like top 8, top 6 in the all-around scoring, she doesn't get to be the all-around because they only take the top 2 from your country. And we have Simone Biles and I believe it's Suni Lee. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Suni Lee. My wife said that Jordan Childs was glaring daggers at Suni Lee after she found that score out and knew that she was not going to be included.
She missed by like
So close.
0.10 of a point. It's very unfortunate.
So close. So that's your Olympic update there. The U.S. leading the the overall medal count, 12-10 over France and 9 in China. China, but China leading the overall gold medal count with 5, the U.S. having 3. And really quickly, the least surprising news of the weekend, are the Dallas Cowboys going to pay anyone? Reports surfacing last night that CeeDee Lamb will not report to training camp on Wednesday, coming off the best season of his career. Will, let's talk about that next, as well as getting into some NFL quarterback talk. Oh my goodness, some guys got paid. Let's dive into when quarterback salaries are going to be considered too much, as well as when CeeDee Lamb's actually going to report to camp. We'll talk about all that next on a Schultz and Will edition of Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Are you
the Odyssey app. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. Good to see everybody. Good to be in. I see rain outside. Will, I just walked out to go pee, and there is rain falling on the street. It is July, and we had a little rain. I'm down. It's
I don't
nice
hate that.
nice and cool. Like I'm gonna walk back out and go out later for my workout, and it's gonna be not ass hot. I'm down.
What are you hitting today?
Going to it's just so I do a personal training with a calisthenics trainer, and essentially he kind of works with it's kind of the Tom Brady method, a lot of bands, and I have been
No strawberries.
What?
No strawberries. You're not eating any strawberries. You said you were Tom Brady.
Yeah, well, maybe the workout method, but as far as like avoiding nightshades and strawberries and anything that makes me swell up, I'm terrible at that. I'm sure what I'm drinking right now, this horrible multi-1,000-calorie drink, isn't gonna do anything to keep me from swelling. No, so I don't eat like Tom Brady, but I do. I remember Bill Belichick saying that, like, Tom Brady and those effing bands, can't believe he trains like that, like back in the day before the NFL really knew, how to get guys even and really strong, and bands are okay. He's actually helping me work out like a little imbalance. I've always kind of been weaker on my left side, so that's why we're doing the band work, but doing squats, doing all kinds of other stuff too.
Squats with bands?
No. Squats like with weights. Just
okay.
Then we're doing like arm band work. We're doing
so it's like a full body kind of system is what you're going through.
Yeah, I think today, because I missed a workout last week, we'll probably go heavy arms, and then I'll probably go back Thursday and do all the squats and the lunges that I got to do.
Nice. There you go. Sounds like fun.
Try to get my chubby booty a little bit slimmer. I'd like to be around till like I'm 80 or 90 if I could. Be nice.
You want to be around till 80 or 90?
I do.
Right now at 26, I don't. I'll let you know how I feel at 70, though.
All right, bro.
I'll let you know how I feel later.
I am halfway through that. Like, if I'm going to live to 70, I am at the halfway mark. So
okay, there you go.
A little scary to me. So that's why I'm kind of saying, like, well, 80, 90, that looks good. I always said anything over 80 is a bonus, because I feel like the quality of years just tends to be, it's a little tougher to get a quality year after that.
Well, who knows? I don't know. My grandparents are all over 80, and they're putting around just fine. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 80 is fine. And then by the time we are in our 80s, 70s, and 80s, they'll have like nasal spray, and I'll get hair again, and you can have a six-pack. It'll be a great thing.
Maybe I can look like a stud 80-year-old like Jack LaLanne back in the day, something like that.
Look like Tom Cruise.
Actually, he's looking old. He was at the Olympics, I believe the gymnastics competition last night, and they showed him on the primetime broadcast along with a few other stars, and like, wow, for the first time ever, right? You are over 60 and you are looking old.
Yeah, but again, like, looking old for Tom Cruise is still like what a 40-year-old is not rich and not Tom Cruise would be like, yes, I look like Tom Cruise now.
Well, somebody that is as maybe close to rich as Tom Cruise, but really wants to be as rich as Tom Cruise, that is not showing up to Dallas Cowboys camp, is apparently CeeDee Lamb. Dallas Cowboys top wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, apparently, according to reports surfacing last night, is not going to report with the rest of the team on Wednesday, coming off his best career season. He set a team record, led the league with 135 receptions, almost 1,750 yards. That was the second best in the NFL, second to only JJ, of course. He also scored 14 touchdowns, 12 receiving, and earned first-team All-Pro honors. Obviously, he is not happy because he has not received the type of deal that the Vikings gave Justin Jefferson, 4 years and $140 million with $110 guaranteed. It's a $35 million average. I believe he's in the last year of his contract. CD is for, I think it's like 18 mil or 17.99 or something like that. So CD already sitting out minicamp in June. We knew that. And now that he is saying that he's going to miss training camp, or reports coming out of Dallas that he is missing training camp, he can now be fined $50,000 per day by the team. Of course, the Cowboys also being hit up by Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons for extensions. Will, are you surprised that Jerry Jones hasn't signed one of them to the dotted line? I understand he's a shrewd negotiator, but you do have to lock up some talent on a team that I would say has a lot of questions about how they play in the playoffs from their fans and from the media there, rightfully so. And Jerry Jones, essentially, in my opinion, is giving everybody the middle finger right now, saying, I know best.
Well, he wants to win a title before he goes. He's been very open about that. He's been very honest about that. And I think when you look at the collection of talent that they've had on this roster and this team, for the most part, it's been pretty similar. It's been the same guys since around Dak kind of took over. Obviously, CD and Micah are newer additions, but I mean, even CD spent a couple years in the NFL. I wonder if Jerry Jones is finally getting out of his own way, where back in the day, hey, that's a guy who is really fast and people seem to really care about him. And so now you just get paid and I'm going to overpay and I don't care. And I'm Jerry Jones and I'm going to throw my money around and we're going to have the most important team and people are going to pay attention. And I wonder if right now he's taking a look at this team and it's like, hey, I only have X amount of years left. I need to make a decision based on this team of, are they going to be good enough to finally get over the hump and get to the Super Bowl and actually win a Super Bowl? Or is this a year where if they don't get enough done, I need to blow it up and I need the ability to blow up the team and make big trades and get guys gone? Now, some of the Dak Prescott stuff kind of seems a little bit like Dak might be waiting a little on that too. Like if Dak waits, has a fantastic year this next year, he hits the open market, Dak Prescott will be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. He will top Love. He will top Burrow. He will top Lawrence. He will top all those guys. I don't know if he'll have the most expensive total contract, but if we're talking average annual value, he will make over $55 million. They're talking about him in the $60 million mark, right?
Yeah.
Do I think he deserves that? No, not necessarily. Will someone pay it? Yes. And I think if he's able to lead this Cowboys team to a further playoff run, then Jerry will pay it. But right now, I think Jerry is just kind of saying, hey, I need to figure out if this is my quarterback that can get me to my final Super Bowl. And if it's not, then I'm going to make a big time move in the next year or so.
But it's important to him to pay that top wide receiver and that top, I mean, not just top defensive talent on the team, one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league right now. Like, you've got to lock those guys up. And then I think that would at least, and we'll look at this with Tua Tagovailoa in Miami, like he's got weapons around him. You need weapons around Dak Prescott. So I'm just confused as to why not one of them. I feel like at least Micah would have been locked up by now, right?
Well, CeeDee Lamb's going to get
He will. Yeah.
Whether he gets paid or not, CeeDee Lamb will show up for games, right? He's on the final year of his deal. He is going to come to games and he is going to play because you will only take so much suspension. Like, think about it. In the entirety of the NFL, in the last, let's go 10 to 15 years, there's been one person who sat out the entire time and said, no, you didn't give me my contract, and never came back.
Didn't go well for him.
Eventually, the player comes back. Even in Seattle, when they had their big holdout with Cam Chancellor, guess what? After 3 games, Cam Chancellor went, no, I need to play, and he came back, right? And then eventually he got his deal done. I wonder if Jerry's looking at this and looking at what we've seen in young wide receivers, rookie wide receivers, sophomore, second-year wide receivers, and says, I don't need to pay CeeDee Lamb this amount of money. I can go and draft and I can go pick wide receivers off of the scrap heap. And if I get a good enough quarterback, he will turn them into something with an offensive coordinator that can scheme guys open. And then I can take this money and spend it in other places. I think that you're starting to see in the NFL, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but aside from the quarterback position, you don't need to overspend on players. CeeDee Lamb is not going to win you a Super Bowl by CeeDee Lamb's self. What CeeDee Lamb can help do is he can help bolster an offense and he can help take them to the next level. And he's a wide receiver that, based on all the other wide receiver contracts that are out, he does deserve to get paid. But that doesn't mean that the Cowboys have to be the ones that give it to him. If they can go and find younger wide receivers that are on the cheap, they can then rebuild that offensive line, which they do need to rebuild that offensive line. It's not the offensive line from 2016 anymore. Most of those guys are gone. The only one still there is Zach Martin, and he's performing at a high level, but that's not what that O-line used to be. I also wonder if he's looking at this from a defensive perspective and says, hey, you know what? I'm not going to necessarily pay Micah Parsons top dollar yet. I might wait a little bit. If this is the team I want to build, I'm going to do it then. He could be someone that you could use as a trade asset later on. That's a big time player, and you can get a lot of draft picks and a lot of capital back. So I wonder if Jerry is finally kind of being smart and getting out of his own way and trying to build a roster based on what the NFL is now, which is you can't overpay for players because this salary cap will hurt you somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he is actually just using some smart negotiating tactics here, and they're just going right over my head because I'm just a dumb journalist or dumb sports radio host trying to pin what he's doing, and the actual conversations have been planning on this kind of approach all off season. And yeah, the players are going to be frustrated, but that's just the way it goes. Like you said, Chancellor showing up game 3. I mean, no players just don't end up reporting, at least most of the time. So, yeah, I can see where Jerry Jones might just be looking, actually, I hate to say it, yeah, a little bit smart in this situation. But, Will, I also think it's a perfect point to transition from CD not reporting. We'll see when he does either get a deal done or show up to Dallas Cowboys training camp. But from CD to massive quarterback salaries, of course, Dak Prescott, wanting $60 million a year. Will he get it from the Cowboys? Will he get it somewhere else? Setting a new mark for high quarterback salaries in the NFL. That actually just got set or tied over the weekend. Let's dive into that and ask the question when quarterback salaries are going to be considered too much in the NFL. I'll give you my definitive answer next on a Schulte and Will edition of Dirt and Sprague. It's 8:15 on the Fan. salaries going to be considered too expensive? Well, in my opinion, I think that number was passed about 15 million bucks ago when Daniel Jones was handed 40 million bucks a year by the New York Giants. But we are in the NFL world, of course. I get it. Each new quarterback contract is going to be a little bit higher than the next. They are highly valued. They are the most valuable position to their team. I understand that. And Jordan Love and Tua Tagovailoa just became the latest additions to higher quarterback contracts on the list at the top of the NFL. So the Miami Dolphins signing Tua to a 4-year, $212.3 million extension, although there are some details of that I'd like to go into. Seemingly on the surface, it looks like a very, very expensive deal, but there's actually some workings in there that don't make it exactly like, but kind of make it a little bit more like a Geno Smith contract with the Seattle Seahawks than you might think, just after looking at the number. But the Miami Dolphins signing Tua to that 4-year, $212.3 million extension. That does bring his annual average up to $53.1 million a year. Of course, that is now in the top 5, 100,000 over Jared Goff. Now, Tua sitting at 4th. And Jordan Love also getting locked up by the Green Bay Packers just hours later for 4 years and $220 million, now at a $55 million a year average, tied with Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, top NFL earners around the league. So let's take a look at the Miami Dolphins situation when it comes to having to pay a quarterback that kind of crazy money. Now, obviously, they're a good team. They've got weapons for Tua to work with in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Their coach, Mike McDaniel, really gotten the best out of Tua in his time there, and frankly, gotten the best out of the whole team. Did they fold in the playoffs last season? Yeah, I think you could say probably. Do they struggle in cold weather locations? Yeah, I don't think Tua can play in Buffalo or in Kansas City or in New England, especially come playoff time. But Tua was statistically one of the best quarterbacks in the league over the past couple of years. Did he deserve a bunch of money? Hell yes. Yes, he deserved to get paid. But did he deserve top 5 money in the league? And we'll get into Jordan Love in a second. But as far as Tua goes, I'm not so sure, Will. I truly wonder if Tua would be the leader on any other team, if he would be the one elevating his guys on any other team. I personally am leaning more towards his success being a byproduct of the situation he's in right now with Miami. And it makes me wonder if he's worth that cash.
Yeah, the problem is he's the next in line. Like, where are you going to go where you're going to get a better quarterback? But, like, your best case scenario is you hope that maybe Dak doesn't get signed in Dallas, and then you can go get Dak in a year. So I don't know if you could afford to not pay him. That being said, when I look at the Dolphins, I have a lot of fear with how much money they have locked up into 3 players.
Yeah.
You have to lock up Tua. If you think he's your guy, and when you look at him statistically, he's been pretty dang good. I mean, think about it this way, Schulte. If they go out and they beat Buffalo last year, if they win against Buffalo in Week 18, they're at home in the playoffs. I like Miami a lot better at home than I like them on the road, and they're not playing in one of the coldest, if not the coldest, playoff games of all time in Kansas City. So it could go either way. Now, that being said, I'm not totally sold on Tua. Like, I don't think Tua puts you over the top so that I don't think he's going to win games necessarily for you. I also don't think that he's going to lose you games. There are a lot of quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, who get paid a lot of money because they're not going to win or lose you games, right? Like, that's a big deal.
Brock Purdy, he's still 100,000 there.
He's going to get paid.
The Niners will pay him because he is next up along with Dak Prescott.
He is going to get paid. But again, he's going to get paid not because he wins you games, but because he doesn't lose you games.
He manages them.
Where I get worried for the Dolphins is when you've locked up this amount of money that you have in Tyreek Hill, in Jalen Waddle, and in Tua. Where do you pay the other positions and how do you pay them? You're going to have to hope that your front office and your coaching staff can find guys off the scrap heap and can develop them. If you can't do that, this Miami team is in a lot of trouble.
I mean, that's fair. You're talking about $28 million going to Tyreek Hill. I think Jalen Waddle's new contract is right around $35 or near, what Justin Jefferson got in new monies, which is why CeeDee Lamb, go listen to our last segment anywhere you get your podcast, why he wants that money and is holding out of Dallas Cowboys training camp. But you wonder, with all of those contracts, like Tua, of course, he needs the money. You've got to sign your quarterback to complete that. But in that conversation, you look at the rest of the AFC. I mean, the league, sure, but is Tua even in the top 5 quarterbacks in his own conference? I mean, you look at Mahomes, Lambjack. I would say a healthy Joe Burrow, like not an injured Joe Burrow, but a healthy Joe Burrow's up there. I would even put, I think C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen.
To be fair, though, what would he be in the NFC?
That's fair. I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, because some of that is subjective.
You're looking at the Raiders. That's true. Yeah.
Like right now, it's subjective if you're going to say, well, what is he ranked in the conference? Well, right now, everyone knows the AFC is dominant when it comes to QB talent in that conference.
But my point is that it's harder to get to the playoffs and in your own conference fighting all these quarterbacks. Is it worth a team that already has so much money committed to 2 really good players to commit it to somebody that, in my opinion, isn't the elevator of those guys? Why not go take a chance and see? I'm not saying that this is the way to go, but at least consider going and getting a young rookie quarterback. If you hit on somebody 70% as good as CJ Stroud, you're looking all right in Miami, and you're paying him $10 million for the next 4
years. You're saying Tua isn't 70% of what CJ Stroud is?
I'm saying you don't pay him. You have the year with him. You make him say, all right, I'm going to go, earn my money somewhere else by playing my ass off for you this year in Miami. You go find, with your scouting, a decent quarterback. And I get it. Quarterbacks, once again, the most valuable position in the NFL. All I'm saying is that there are more than one way to skin it. There is more than one way to skin a cat, right? And you either have a elite quarterback in the NFL or you have a super young quarterback in the NFL, and that is how you win a Super Bowl. I feel like Miami has all that talent, and this quarterback that they just gave top level money to, yes, he's next up, but he is not a top level guy, and long term, that is going to hurt them. Although there are some differences slipped into this contract that actually allow them to get out of it after 3 years instead of 4. So that's why I was saying it's a little bit more like a Geno conversation. They can take a hit in the 4th year on the cap, but not pay him $50 million.
I'd make the argument that it's not the Tua contract that's the issue.
Okay.
It's the Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle contract. It's easier to find 80% of Tyreek Hill, 80% of Jalen Waddle. Shoot, it's easier to find 90% of those 2 wide receivers at a cheaper discounted rate than it is to find a quarterback. Just remember, I believe the number is top 10 quarterback picks. It's a 50% hit rate on bust or success. So finding that quarterback, even if you have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, even if you have a top 5 pick in the NFL draft,
Bryce Young
is a coin flip. So wouldn't it then be easier to not pay the wide receivers and go and find other talent? That being said, it's the Dolphins, right? Like, I know they haven't had postseason success, but I love what McDaniels can do. Like, I love the run game that he has created. He picked Mostert off a trash heap when they signed him in San Francisco. And then San Francisco got rid of him like yesterday's news because they got Christian McCaffrey. And Mostert led the NFL in touchdowns last year. McDaniels is able to design a run game that opens everything else up for Tua. The thing is right now, I don't think that you can go and easily find someone that is better than Tua. And when you can't do that, you gotta pay him. And whether he deserves it or not, he has fallen into the pay rate. We were talking about it on the Sunday show, Sprague and I, and the list of the top 8 paid NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah.
None of them have a Super Bowl. I believe they have 3 Super Bowl appearances between those players. Burrow has 1.
Yeah.
Goff has 1. And I forget who the other...
Jalen Hurts.
Thank you. Jalen Hurts has 1. And if you look at that list of 8 players, which is Love, Lawrence, Burrow, Hurts, Jackson, Goff, Lawrence, if I didn't mention him, and there's one other in there. If you look at those quarterbacks, which one do you think gets to the Super Bowl first? Which one do you think wins theirs?
I mean, that's a good question. I like the Lions with Jared Goff. I feel like, the Chargers have some momentum with Jim Harbaugh now. If they're going to pay a quarterback $50+ million, I don't think I hear everybody saying, "Oh, Harbaugh's not going to make Justin Herbert throw." Yes, he is. He's a $50 million quarterback. You're paying him to throw the ball, so stop that. But also Jordan Love, getting into really quickly the other massive contract handed out to quarterbacks over the weekend. Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers getting crazy money. He had a great season on, of course, a rookie contract, but sat under Aaron Rodgers for a couple of years, so really only had 1 year to prove himself, getting signed to that massive deal, 4 years, $220 million, now tying him with the top quarterback salaries in the NFL. Can teams depend on those quarterbacks on rookie contracts that have success for more than one season? I mean, Love did show the ability to play well. He played well in cold weather. Like I said, his situation, I do believe, is a bit different since he sat under Aaron Rodgers for so long, and the Packers had a limited amount of play to base this decision on. But is that enough to give somebody, that amount of money, tying them with the highest paid guys in the league? I don't think so, but I hear you, Will. What you're saying is that's just kind of the way that we're in the world that we're in right now. But it really does give me pause wondering how quickly these salaries are growing, brother. I get it. Like, they are the most important position to their team, but in 2014 even, we're talking $20 million as the top salary. Mark Sanchez, a couple of years before that, was the top paid quarterback at 17 mil. I think Eli Manning was the first ever quarterback to get $20 million. And that happened just over a decade ago. Now we're already getting to 60. There will have to be a plateau at some point. There just has to be.
Eventually, you're right. There will be. But right now, you also have to remember it's not about the monetary value. It's not about the number of 20 or 30 or 40, 55 million for the top paid QBs. It's about the percentage that they're making on the salary cap, which the percentage has largely kind of fallen around the same number.
Yeah.
Right? It's right around that 13. If you're making over 13, you're not winning the Super Bowl. If you're under 13, you got a pretty good shot at winning the Super Bowl. If you're over 13, you better have Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So remember that. It's more about the percentage towards the cap necessarily than it is the big number. The Love one I find interesting because, again, Sprague and I were talking about this on the Sunday show. When you think about Jordan Love at the end of last year, you think about him going out and performing at a high level, playing as a top 10 quarterback. He goes into Dallas and he absolutely dominates the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And then you think about that 49ers game and they were close, right? And it was a close game and it was back and forth. So Jordan Love had a couple insane throws, one where he's on the run and he hits a wide receiver on the sideline. They have a big drive at the end of the game. They're just not able to cap it off. And then you look at his numbers in that game, and he had less than 200 yards. He threw more interceptions than he threw touchdowns. But in my head, I remember thinking of that as being a big-time Jordan Love performance. Oh, hey, he's finally showing up.
Yeah.
So the Love one, to me, makes a little less sense than Tua just because your sample size is so small. Tua has his injury issues, but when Tua has been healthy, he has been a good quarterback in the NFL and a top 15 above average quarterback with Mike McDaniels. When you look at Jordan Love, all you have to go off of is last year. So now you're basically trusting that the Green Bay Packers are saying, hey, we've had him in the facility for the last 4. He was just getting his feet wet. This is the start of something great. And if Jordan Love continues to improve and plays like he did at the end of the year and only gets better from there, then this is a great signing because you probably got him for cheap. And if you're Jordan Love, it's a great signing because you're going to get another contract when you're 30. But if Jordan Love takes a step back, this is bad for the Packers. This is trying to go all in, thinking you have your guy, waiting 4 years, letting him develop under Rodgers, and then it all not paying off, and you're back in trying to get a quarterback here within 2 years.
I tend to agree with you there. They could. There is a world where they end up in a weird situation with a very, very overpaid mediocre quarterback. I'm not trying to knock Jordan Love, but there is a multiverse out there where that is a possibility. And to respond to the Vancouver Ford text line really quickly, yes, all sports salaries have increased. Want to look at top NBA contracts from 16 to now. You're right. I get that. And all in all, I understand the growing number of salaries. I understand teams like the Dolphins and Packers are in a must-pay situation with their stud QBs. All I'm saying is I'm getting super uncomfortable as a fan that a team has to hand a player $200 to $300 million after one good season, I'm concerned that that's going to be sustainable for that team in the future. Yeah, growing media deals. Sure, there's a lot of money coming at these guys and these teams, but I was in the mindset years ago that athletes making $50 million a year in salary alone was just way too much for one person. I always thought that like the $50 million salary mark would be hitting baseball first, but the exponential rate of growth of star player salary in the NFL, the NBA, as our texter points out for that matter, has been absolutely massive. In the past 10 seasons, it's just totally jumped the shark. I get it. All I'm trying to wrap up with is that I don't think it's sustainable for the years to come, and it'll be interesting to see where the ceiling could be if there ever is one. All right, do words actually mean anything? Apparently, Charles Barkley doesn't think so. That's next, but first, here's Will with SportsCenter.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
SportsCenter is brought to you by Vulcan Design and Construction. Check out their award-winning outdoor living designs or schedule your free design consultation at vulcandc.com. First on The Fan, we're going over to France. The women's national basketball team gets their Olympic schedule underway today against Japan. That game tips off at noon. Right now, Team USA is favored by 21.5. Later on today, the Mariners are traveling to Boston to take on the Red Sox. Logan Gilbert gets the start for the Mariners. Nick Pivetta gets the start for the Red Sox. First pitch is scheduled for 4:10. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Will Ortner at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Jump back to earlier parts of your favorite fan shows on the Odyssey app. The only way to rewind Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan.
Are you curious about who offers the best deals on top-rated Samsung, LG, and Sony TVs? The answer is surprising. It's not online, and it's not the warehouse clubs. The best deals on top-rated TVs are at Video Only. Don't believe it? Then check out the trade-in deals at Video Only. How about $500 for your old TV? Try doing that online. Before you buy that new TV, drop into Video Only. If you don't, you'll be sorry.
It's Wade back with you from my friends at Forest Hills Golf Course out in Cornelius, my home course once again. And oh, how the improvements have been going. And the new forward tee boxes have all been seated, will be ready
of it. I'm getting sick of what people say, just trying to get quoted or just throw something out there that they'll lament is true to their bones publicly, saying, this is how I feel, and you're not convincing me otherwise. Then later on, only ends up being hot air. For instance, all those celebrities that swore they would leave the country when Donald Trump became the president, none of them actually did. Not a single famous person that was bitching about it on Twitter actually followed through. Well, that same thing, maybe not with presidents or anything, but that same thing happened in the world of sports over the weekend. I would like to add one Charles Chuck Barkley to the list of famous celebrities who don't actually mean what they say when they say it. Weeks after claiming that he would flat out retire if the NBA didn't end up signing a new deal with TNT to keep Inside the NBA on air, old Chuck has pulled a complete 180. This is per The Athletic. He will either remain with TNT Sports. They're still going to be covering the likes of college basketball. They got baseball as well. They are subleasing a couple of the college football playoff games from ESPN to be on TNT. So he either now will remain with TNT Sports or listen to offers from ESPN, NBC, and Amazon Prime for when the new media rights deal kicks in 2025-26. Of course, Barkley is in the third year of a 10-year, $210 million contract with TNT Sports. He was quoted as saying that Turner has to come to me ASAP, and they have to guarantee my whole thing, or they can offer me a pay cut, which there is no chance of that happening, and I'll be a free agent. My thing was, wait, y'all bleeped up. I didn't bleep up. Why do I have to take a pay cut? Will, does any of this surprise you? A man that was ready to supposedly retire because of the almighty dollar being chased is right now back to chasing that almighty dollar himself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. I like seeing Charles Barkley on TV, and Charles has been open about there are times where he says things in the heat of the moment where he believes it when he says it in the moment, or sometimes he's using it as posturing to try and get people to get the job done that he wants. And
yeah.
now he's going back on it. Look, it's pretty hard to turn down that sweet, cushiony, hey, you're going to work during the NBA season and you're going to make $3 or $4 million a year, and all you have to do is work 2 days a week.
$20 million a year, Will.
Whatever
he's making. $20 million a year.
Whatever he's making, then he's just fine. Look, sometimes it's posturing. Sometimes you have to go out and say things to try and get your way, and it didn't work out for him, and then he could have either held by it and retired, or, which I think a lot of people thought was more likely, was that he would come back. And I love Charles Barkley, so I'm all for him, getting out on his word and coming back.
I mean, I like it. I like the Chuck, whole shtick. I love him, on Inside the NBA with everybody else, but I just find this entire line of thinking so freaking hypocritical. He was throwing the NBA under the bus for chasing the money. Now he wants that quick guarantee from his employers when things get rough. Literally weeks after, this is a quote stating it's a sad day when owners and commissioners choose money over the fans. It just sucks, and it sounds like you're choosing money over what you said you believed to be true in your heart and in your bones, a few weeks ago. I mean, Chuck, as I just said, he gets paid $20 million a year basically to talk in chunks of no longer than 3-5 minutes before going back to commercial break with 3 other dudes. Who cares if you have to take a pay cut? Yeah, some of that money is for that sparkling Charles Barkley humor and personality. We love it. I love watching it, but I think we can all agree that he's way overpaid, and I'm not knocking on him. Really, anybody making that kind of money just to talk, I think we can all agree is overpaid. I'm not knocking Charles Barkley personally as a person. I hear stuff like that from people, and I become less of a fan. And beyond that, I just want us to actually attach meaning to what we're saying. That's all I want. I want us to mean it, and I want us to have to be held accountable for those words later on. That's all. That's it. Simple.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, but when it comes to retiring or not, his words there only affected him. It wasn't like he was using rhetoric to go and attack anyone else. And as someone who is 26,
he was attacking the NBA for chasing the money. Yes, he was.
Well, yeah. How did that really hurt them? Were people really like, you know what? I loved the NBA. And then as soon as Charles Barkley attacked the NBA and said they were chasing a dollar value, then I stopped watching the NBA. Like that didn't
No,
happen, right?
I get
Like
it.
he went out there and he said some things in the heat of the moment. And then now he's saying different things about his own salary. Hey, I don't want to take a pay cut. I don't blame him. I would never want to take a pay cut. I don't think that I make enough money in any of the jobs that I do that would require someone to come up to me and ask me to take a pay cut.
I mean,
But, once
I get
someone
it.
has given me a contract, I would like that contract to be honored. The thing that I want to just remind everyone too is I'm 26. There are a lot of really dumb things that I said at 22. There are a lot of really dumb things that I said at 16 that at the time I meant them. And now looking back, I know it's really dumb. And give me, you know, 10 more years and I'll think the things that I'm saying at 26 now are really dumb. It's why most people got off Facebook. They don't want to see your Facebook memories from your photos from 3 and 4 years
Yeah.
ago. They don't want to see how much fatter they've gotten over the years or
It's
how
true.
much better their hair used to look back then. So I just don't think that we need to hang on to every single word that every person has said and hold that as gospel. Like, nope, you said you were going to retire. Well, guess what? A material change happened. He's not going to retire. And I always want more Charles Barkley.
I hear you. I just think that attitude and the hypocritical behavior is bullshit. To people on the text line saying stop clutching your pearls, I don't think I'm clutching pearls. I think I'm just asking for people to behave normal and just be consistent. I don't think that that's pearl clutching at all. But there you go. Charles Barkley basically flipping his tune, pulling a 180 instead of stating that he would retire if the NBA did not continue to be on TNT going forward. Now he is saying that TNT better guarantee him the whole bag or he's going to be on to possibly ESPN or Amazon Prime or NBC. All right, let's wrap it up. Have some fun with audio coming up next. What not to do when you're Olympic announcer. It's 8:48 on The Fan. with audio. It wasn't quite a Tom Brenneman situation, but I would say that it was kind of getting there, and it was getting to that direction. So a Olympics commentator, Eurosport commentator Bob Ballard, was removed from their broadcast over the weekend. Their coverage of the Olympic Games during a Australian 4x100 swimming relay. Bob Ballard was covering that, called a gold medal of the women's 4x100 relay, the winners from Australia. And at that point, after the win, made what was a very sexist comment live on air.
Well, the women just finishing off. You know what women are like, hanging around, doing the makeup.
Outrageous, Bob. Some of the men are doing that as well.
They're doing the makeup.
Yeah, there you go, Bob